You're watching All 24 News World News Program, and up next are tonight's top stories. Algeria stands firmly with Mali's unity, opposes all terrorism, and urges Mali to stay united from within. New deals on the table. Algeria teams up with Bosnia on real projects, and Washington backs Algeria's business climate. The president is celebrating Algeria's sport elite for their historic titles on the world and African stage, and Kylian Mbappé is named Africa's top gymnast. A new Iranian proposal reopened the Strait of Hormuz but delay nuclear talks. Iran also confirms a new American offer for direct talks, and Moscow says its strategic relationship with Tehran remains solid. Welcome back. Algeria's Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf has reaffirmed Algeria's firm support for Mali's unity, its territory, its people, and its institutions, warning of the serious developments facing the country. He made the remarks during a joint press conference with Bosnia and Herzegovina's Foreign Minister Alamuddin Kunakovic.
From the same perspective, I would like to highlight the serious developments unfolding in our region, and in Mali in particular, in order to reaffirm Algeria's clear and steadfast position. Algeria's support, first and foremost, for the unity of Mali, its territory, its people, and its institutions.
Ahmed Attaf reaffirmed Algeria's categorical rejection of all forms of terrorism, stressing that it cannot be justified or tolerated under any pretext. He underscored that strengthening Mali's national unity remains the most effective safeguard against the threat.
Secondly, Algeria firmly and unequivocally rejects all forms of manifestations of terrorism, which can neither be justified or tolerated under any circumstances, regardless of its motives or causes, an approach rooted in Algeria's painful experience with this scourge. Thirdly and finally, Algeria calls for strengthening national cohesion within the brotherly state of Mali, as this unity is the most effective deterrent against terrorism and the shield that can truly be relied upon to confront this threat with the required efficiency.
The Algerian Minister of State and Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf described relations between Algeria and Bosnia and Herzegovina as excellent and promising. Speaking alongside the visiting Foreign Minister Alamuddin Kunakovic, he called for building on the shared historical legacy to further strengthen cooperation and partnership. He stressed Algeria's aim to translate these promising prospects into concrete projects that benefit both countries.
Algeria was among the first countries to recognize the state of Bosnia and Herzegovina just a few days after its declaration of independence, even before its accession to the UN in May of the same year. This shared historical legacy deserves our utmost gratitude and appreciation today as we move forward in exploring opportunities for cooperation and partnership between our two friendly countries in various fields of mutual and certain benefit. Today I reviewed with my brother, His Excellency the Minister, the promising prospects for bilateral cooperation in several vital areas such as energy, mining, industry, pharmaceuticals, agriculture, as well as emerging institutions.
For his part, Bosnia and Herzegovina's Foreign Minister Alamuddin Kunakovic said his country is ready to turn its long friendship with Algeria into a strategic partnership. He also announced plans to open a Bosnian embassy in Algiers soon, once the necessary administrative steps are wrapped up back home.
Today, in these challenging times, we can say together that we really appreciate the value of peace, and we really appreciate the value of independency because of similar historical facts that we were going through in the past. We view Algeria as a key partner in North Africa, and an important hub for broader engagement with African markets. And today we underline our readiness to transform this traditional friendship into strategic and economically driven partnership.
Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune received Italian Ambassador Alberto Cotello on Monday for a farewell visit. A statement from the Algerian presidency said the meeting was also attended by the president's advisor for diplomatic affairs, Ammar Abba. Algerian Minister of State and Minister of Hydrocarbons Mohamed Arqab received U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Lundo on Monday during a working visit to Algeria. Both sides reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening dialogue and cooperation for mutual benefit and sustainable development. Arqab called for expanding ties between Sonatrach and U.S. companies ExxonMobil and Chevron, including in manufacturing and modern technologies. Lundo, for his part, praised Algeria's business climate and U.S. companies' interests in long-term investment partnerships. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune congratulated Algerian athletes on what he described as a historic achievement in the World and African Championships. In a message posted on X, he said Algeria's sports elite won 122 medals, including 46 gold across world and African competitions and an international tournament in just 1 month.
I'm incredibly proud of the level of sport achieved in Algeria thanks to the determination of our sons and daughters who have always been worthy of our trust and will continue to be so. 122 medals, including 46 gold in World, African and International Championships all in 1 month, is a historic achievement resulting from tremendous efforts. 1,000 thanks to all of you, athletes and coaches, and congratulations.
Algerian gymnast Kylian Amour just won the African Artistic Gymnastics Championships in Yaoundé in Cameroon. She walked away with 5 gold medals and was crowned best gymnast of the competition. Amour struck gold on balance beam, floor exercise, uneven bars all around, and team events. The Algerian national team is crowned champion in traditional kata competitions both with and without weapons, as well as in self-defense events. The Algerian athletes won a total of 35 gold, 19 silver and 33 bronze medals at the World Kempo Championships held in Antalya, Turkey from April 20th to 26th. Switching focus to another topic on news story, Washington and Tehran are showing cautious signs of diplomatic movement as both sides weigh new proposals that could reshape the trajectory of the conflict, while the situation around the Strait of Hormuz remains unstable. Zarfajan reports.
Iran has put forward a new proposal to the United States through Pakistani mediators aimed at reopening the Strait of Hormuz and bringing the war to an end while postponing nuclear negotiations to a later stage. According to media sources, the proposal was discussed during Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi's recent visit to Pakistan, with a clear focus on resolving the Hormuz crisis and lifting the U.S. naval blockade as a priority. The plan also leaves room for extending the current ceasefire or even reaching a permanent agreement before returning to the nuclear file. Tehran also confirms it has received a new offer from U.S. President Donald Trump to launch bilateral talks. Araghchi says Iran is reviewing the proposal, suggesting Washington's shift comes after failing to meet its objectives on the ground.
There have been developments in the negotiation process, but the approaches adopted by the U.S. have led to the failure of the previous round of the talks despite some progress. The U.S. excessive demands and incorrect approaches are the main reasons of the failure, so it is necessary for Iran to consult with our friend Pakistan to review the latest situation. The visit is productive.
Diplomatic efforts have also extended to Oman, where Araghchi says recent discussions focused on ensuring safe navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, highlighting the need for coordination between Tehran and Muscat as key coastal states. On the ground, the economic dimension of the conflict continues to intensify. Iran has managed to export around 4 million barrels of crude oil with satellite data showing dozens of tankers successfully navigating the strait despite strict U.S. monitoring. But Washington says it is tightening enforcement. The U.S. Navy reports intercepting Iranian oil shipments worth over $1 billion, along with additional cargo valued at hundreds of millions more, part of a broader campaign to disrupt Tehran's oil exports and limit its access to global markets.
I will confirm the President has met with his national security team this morning. The proposal was being discussed. I don't want to get ahead of the President or his national security team. What I will reiterate is that the President's red lines with respect to Iran have been made very, very clear, not just to the American public, but also to them as well.
With diplomacy tentatively back on the table, but maritime tensions still high, the coming days could prove decisive in determining whether this conflict moves toward de-escalation or deeper confrontation.
For his part, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed hope for peace in the Middle East and reaffirmed Russia's commitment to its strategic ties with Iran. During talks in St. Petersburg on Monday with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, he expressed Russia's support and continued cooperation and hoped the Iranian people would overcome what he described as a difficult period.
I would like to ask you to convey my most sincere gratitude for this message from the Supreme Leader of Iran and to reaffirm that Russia, just like Iran, is committed to continuing our strategic relationship. We observe with what courage and heroism the people of Iran are fighting for their independence and their sovereignty.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said the EU isn't budging on its stance toward Tehran, lifting sanctions not on the table without fundamental change. Speaking at a meeting in Berlin on Monday, von der Leyen made clear the current sanctions are tied to Iran's domestic policies and the regime's overall direction. Any future easing of economic or political restrictions depends on Tehran responding to international demands and making a real radical shift in its approach.
We think the dropping of sanctions would be too early because there's a reason why the sanctions are imposed on Iran. And this reason is their behavior towards the own population. It's the suppression of human rights in Iran and many other topics that triggered the sanctions. We first have to see a change, a fundamental change in Iran for the dropping of sanctions, and therefore we think it's too early to drop sanctions.
China's foreign ministry on Monday described U.S. sanctions on a Chinese refinery that buys Iranian oil as an illegal move. Spokesman Lin Jian urged Washington to stop what he called mistakes, stressing Beijing's determination to firmly protect the interests of Chinese companies against U.S. sanctions.
China opposes illicit unilateral sanctions that have no basis in international law. We urge the U.S. to stop willfully slapping sanctions and using long-armed jurisdiction. China will firmly defend the lawful right and interests of Chinese companies.
3 Lebanese were killed in Zionist airstrikes and artillery shelling on towns in the Tyre and Nabatea governorates in southern Lebanon. The Lebanese Ministry of Health reported on Monday that Zionist forces carried out heavy artillery shelling on villages in the western sector of Tyre district, killing 3 people and injuring several others, including a woman and children. It added that the total number of Lebanese killed since the start of the Zionist aggression had reached 2,521. A Palestinian child was killed on Monday by Zionist occupation forces in Beit Lahia in the northern Gaza Strip. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza announced that the number of victims had risen to 817 martyrs and 2,296 wounded since the ceasefire agreement came into effect last October. It added that the overall toll of the war of extermination had reached 72,593 martyrs and at least 172,399 wounded. Residents of Khan Yunis are using rubble and debris to resurface destroyed roads and streets. That's the major project now underway with support from the UNDP. The people of Gaza hope this marks a first step toward rehabilitating an enclave devastated by more than 2 years of genocide. Salman Sib reports this time.
In Khan Younis, bulldozers are hard at work. Millions of tons of rubble accumulated since October 7, 2023 have overwhelmed the enclave, blocking both major roads and smaller access routes. This large-scale clearing effort is a vital step for Gaza's residents, offering a first glimpse of what comes after the devastation, a path toward reconstruction and the restoration of essential infrastructure.
In Gaza, we are dealing with an unprecedented volume of rubble. We're talking about 61 million tons. And this is one of the most urgent humanitarian priorities, as debris is one of the bottlenecks.
The war is over, but there is the beginning of a new war, which is the beginning of reconstruction, the beginning of removing the rubble and dealing with infrastructure, electricity, water, sewage, schools, and streets.
Under a blazing sun, Palestinian workers sort and clear debris, grueling but essential work. Supported by the United Nations Development Programme, rubble is being recycled to rebuild roads, already allowing some residents to reach their land for the first time in over 2 years.
As of today, we have collected 287,000 tons. It's the tip of the iceberg, what we have done. But as you see behind me, beyond the collection, we have started sorting, we have started crushing, and as such, reusing it.
We thank the UNPD for this work and effort, taking the rubble from the houses and fixing the roads a little so we can access our places. We were not able. Our boots used to get soaked. This was full of water pools.
Clearing more than 60 million tons of rubble in a besieged Gaza Strip is an immense challenge, a truly monumental task. Palestinians are taking it with determination, often at great personal risk. Yet, despite the hazards, their priority is clear: to rebuild their homeland. Their hope is simple but profound: to restore electricity, running water, sanitation systems, homes, schools, and the vibrant life of their streets.
The president of the Arab Interparliamentary Union, Ibrahim Bughali, confirmed or condemned repeated Zionist violations of the status quo of holy sites in occupied Al-Quds. In a statement, he affirmed that incursions into Al-Aqsa Mosque courtyards constituted a blatant attack and a breach of international law and a threat to regional stability. He called on the international community to act immediately to stop these violations and impose sanctions on the Zionist occupation authorities.
We call on the international community to assume its moral and legal responsibilities and to take immediate and decisive measures to put an end to these violations. We urge the imposition of effective sanctions on the occupying authorities, support for the Palestinian position in international forums, the protection of Islamic and Christian holy sites in Al-Quds, and increased pressure to end illegal settlement activity and evacuate settlers.
The Polisario Front called for international support of a genuine self-determination process in Western Sahara, keeping independence as a viable option. Its representative in Australia, Kamal Fadel, described Morocco's push to reduce Morocco's mandate as a grave mistake, warning of regional repercussions. Safian Kinturi has more.
The Western Sahara issue remains one of the longest unresolved cases on the United Nations agenda, spanning more than 5 decades. A conflict shaped by overlapping historical and political dimensions, where the right of an entire people to self-determination continues to face obstacles.
Discussions are taking place, encouraged by Morocco, about reducing MINURSO's mandate or presence, or even allowing it to fade away. That would be a serious mistake.
As the deadline approaches to renew the mandate of the United Nations mission for the referendum in Western Sahara, the Mahson regime is stepping up efforts behind the scenes to influence the process, including pressure to reduce the scope and presence of the UN mission.
The referendum was not impossible. It was held successfully in Namibia, East Timor, and Eritrea. But Morocco has spent 35 years blocking the process. Any proposal that excludes independence is not a real option. Self-determination means offering the people a genuine choice.
At the heart of the dispute lies a clear divide: Morocco's autonomy proposal on one side, and the inalienable right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination on the other side, a right recognized internationally since 1975. Against this backdrop, the UN Security Council framework continues to call for a political solution that is just, lasting, and ensures the exercise of self-determination.
Russia accused Ukraine on Monday of bombing the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. RIA Novosti reported that a Ukrainian drone strike targeted a transport workshop at the facility, killing one worker and injuring others. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, warned that attacks on or near nuclear plants endanger nuclear safety, saying its team is monitoring the situation and will investigate after a driver was killed in a drone strike. Moscow also accused Kiev of targeting the site, Europe's largest nuclear power plant, causing the death of one worker and injuries to others. In Sudan, frontline hospitals in Omdurman and Darfur facilities are still open. Credit goes to local surgeons and small teams working under siege, bombings, and severe shortages. Doctors have stayed to treat their own people in a country ravaged by the war since 2023. More on this story with Karim Mustafa.
Al-Naw Hospital in Omdurman has become a symbol of resilience amid the ongoing war in Sudan. Hit 4 times since April 2023, it has never stopped operating. This endurance is largely due to the unwavering commitment of its medical team led by Dr. Jamal al-Tayyib. While many fled for safety, Dr. al-Tayyib remained often the only one in charge, keeping the hospital running under extreme conditions. For nearly 3 years, Jamal has been working in circumstances most would consider impossible.
Choosing as if you can choose who's going to live and who is going to die. That's difficult. It is a difficult decision for me and for any doctor, but you need to do that. It's your duty to do that. We have been hit for 4 times, but we are working and saving everybody here because there is no other hospital they can go to.
As violence spreads across Sudan, nearly 40% of the country's hospitals are now out of service, and Al-Naw remains one of the few functioning health centers in the region. Some, like Al-Shab Hospital, have been devastated by the war.
The hospital suffered a lot of damage because it was near the General Command Center and a militia concentration point. They say the last battles were fought here, in this hospital. I hope that the situation calms down and people can return. We were already at war, and now we are entering a new one, and the problems are piling up.
After 3 years of war, Sudan's already fragile healthcare system has been pushed to the brink. What remains is a system struggling to function at all, as the country faces one of the worst humanitarian crises according to local and international aid agencies.
And that's the end of our news program for tonight. To catch up on any part you missed or get the latest updates, you can always visit our social media platforms. I'm Islam signing off. Thank you for watching. Good night.